Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Once again, I have with me Nate the lawyer, and I am Legal Bites. Alita is actually my real name. I just, but that's the channel name. If I can say that as awkwardly as possible. What's the most awkward way that I can introduce myself to everyone on a live stream? That would be just about it. Anyway,
it's my real name. It's not really my real name. Well,
it's like kind of my real name, and anyway.
Oh, my
Hey everyone! Happy Thursday! Happy Thursday!
Yes,
How are you doing, Nate?
I'm doing okay. I just got back from Vegas, so it's been that was a wild trip. But just taking every day at a time and trying to pump out this YouTube content because that seems to be the big issue right now. And just getting back to normal life. I forget, you're going to Vegas for 4 days and come back and you're like, oh my God, my life is like so different than what this Vegas trip was. So.
Yeah, I mean, especially if it's, I don't know if it's anything like it was in the movies, but like The Hangover.
Oh no, it wasn't. Thank God it wasn't that insane. But it was pretty. It wasn't calm. It was pretty insane. But the biggest thing is just that the prices for everything. Obviously, Vegas, everything's just so expensive.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, it's just ridiculous. So it's just that's. But again, it's a tourist trap. But I'll say this: the weather is always fantastic in Vegas. Sunny days every day because they're in the middle of the desert, right? But it's pretty good.
Nice. And then I'm hoping you didn't just lose all your money.
Pretty much just lost all my money. We saw the Manny Pacquiao fight.
Okay.
And it's so wild, right? So I'm with a group of maybe 10 guys, and Manny Pacquiao's fighting. So he's fighting this guy, and I think the guy. He was training for another fight, then he got the Manny Pacquiao fight. So it was like the guy had 10 days to prepare for the Pacquiao fight. So at the beginning of the fight, me and the guys were like, should we put money on the fight? So they were like, we should bet on Pacquiao, right? He's a 3-1 favorite. So I was like, nah, I'm not betting on Pacquiao. They'll make only $30 for 100. Let's bet on the other guy. So we get like $1,000 together and get all the money and run to the sports bet. And as soon as we get there, they shut off the betting, right? So we're like, fuck it. So we saved $1,000, right?
Yeah.
Pacquiao's probably going to beat this guy.
Yeah.
The guy wins. So we're all sad. And, oh my God, So now we're cheering Pacquiao. He fucking it was insane. But it was fun nonetheless.
Oh man. Oh yeah, that's tough. That's really tough. But hey, I mean, you also did not run the risk of losing it, so that's that's pretty decent. But you didn't.
There's nothing gained.
I know, that's true. Absolutely true. So anyway, we've got an interesting week this week with legal stuff going on. Last week was a little bit quieter, and this week was it's pretty interesting so far. So let's talk about the first thing. Is the most recent thing. I guess yesterday is when it dropped. Was news of the Nirvana Baby. The guy who's now 30 years old. He was the baby on the cover of Nirvana's album Nevermind. And let me share this here. So he is he's suing pretty much everyone involved with this album cover. And interesting. Have you heard about this, Nate?
I have not, but the first thing is for me is like the statute of limitations. This just lasts forever with this thing.
Yeah,
he's 30 years old.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like he's got two main allegations here. The first one is that he says that his parents were not. I guess they didn't agree to release the photo or whatever for Nirvana's use. And then the other part is he's alleging essentially CP. So yeah, because it's, if you're familiar, this photo doesn't show it. This is basically the photo that is on the album cover, but this doesn't show exactly everything that the album cover shows, which is just everything. He's a completely naked baby. He's ostensibly following a dollar bill that's dangled on a hook, as you can see there on the article. And so, I mean, kind of ironic because that's arguably what he's doing here, because it's not a very good case apparently. So I have so this is the complaint here. It's filed in federal court in California. Apparently he's in California I wouldn't be surprised if the rest of these defendants are all in California, but he's suing under a federal statute for CP and for other, you know, the other allegations. However, as you mentioned right out of the gate, the first problem with this lawsuit is a statute of limitations. So that was the first thing that I looked for when I was looking at this. And this is the statute that he's suing under, Chapter 110 of the U.S. Code, exploitation and other abuse of children. If you go to Section 2255, civil remedy for personal injuries, because generally speaking, CP is going to be a criminal liability, but there is the ability for somebody to get civil remedies for it if they sue the person directly outside of a criminal case, of course. But here it talks about statute of limitations, and it says any action commenced under this section is barred unless the complaint is filed not later than 10 years after the date on which the plaintiff reasonably discovers the later of either the violation that forms the basis of the claim or the injury that forms the basis for the claim, or they also can't, or it's also barred unless the complaint is filed not later than 10 years after the date on which the victim reaches 18 years of age.
And this guy's 30, so he's 28 year. Oh my God. 2
years too late.
Woo.
So that's the number one issue right here. So if we were talking about, you know, if he was suing under California law, there's a possibility. I was trying to find the statute of limitations for this under California state law. There's a possibility that it may that he might be able to sue until he's 40, I think. But it wasn't clear to me whether it was the lesser or the greater of of him being younger than 40 or having at least 5 years since his discovery of the violation of the law. Yeah. So, but in this case, he's suing under federal law, so he's got a federal statute of limitations to contend with, and this is a very hard and fast rule. So
I think that claim is what, but also well, there's multiple issues with the claim. The first one is, let's just be honest, you know, is it even CP? You know, that's probably the one thing. If you're talking about on the album cover that was sent to everybody, you know, that doesn't mean that's what it is. Matter of fact, I would make the argument that it's not, and this doesn't even apply at all. But even granting that, then the statute of limitations board. So I think the motion to dismiss is going to be twofold. Number one, it's not, and number two, we got and for we in New York, we say we say SOL instead of statute of limitations, and SOL means blank out of luck.
Yep.
Yeah.
Shoot out of luck. So and here's the other interesting thing about it too is that, you know, if he's going to talk about, you know, him being harmed by this, look at this. This is 5 years ago. He recreated the photo on the cover of the album 5 years ago, and apparently he did it 10 years ago too. So this guy, I mean, he's been drumming up the fact that he's the baby on the, you know, he's the Nirvana baby, right? And so, you know, over the years, and so he's been benefiting from it, he's been profiting from it, and now for some reason, I guess, I don't know, maybe you know, the 20th year anniversary, the 25th year anniversary, he decided he wanted to commemorate with a photo shoot. Maybe he figured that on the 30th anniversary, people were no longer interested in his, you know, photo cover shoots, and he decided he wanted to sue instead. But I
think he got a good idea. I think somebody gave him a good idea, you know. Did that type of thing, you know. I think somebody gave him a good idea and was like, "Hey, why not, you know, sue? That's you, you know." And they probably formulated this, but not understanding the back. And does he have a lawyer? Is he a lawyer on that complaint? Is he a lawyer to sign that complaint?
He does. The lawyer is out of New York, but they're California bar licensed.
So, well, because this it's not frivolous. I don't think it's frivolous to the point where the lawyer can be sanctioned, but I think it's enough where, you know, the motion to dismiss, the court can bring this up sua sponte, right? No, you're over the statute of limitations. You're wasting everybody's time here. So right. And then the other part of it too is that the other allegation that he made, you know, aside from the CP allegation, is
that he said that his parents never agreed to release the photo to Nirvana and to the photographer, et cetera, et cetera. However, it's been long known that his parents were paid $200 for the taking of the photo. So that's an interesting point too, is that if money was exchanged, generally speaking, that is a sign of some sort of an agreement. It may not be in writing. It could be, just a verbal agreement, but that's still potentially enforceable.
Yeah, I think the issue would be is that since he's making the claims as the plaintiff, he's going to have to prove
Yes.
that wasn't part of the agreement. So, and he's going to have to do it with something more than, my parents just said this, right? If they did get the money, then there's going to have to be some limiting factors on, production use, and the fact that he has only known this thing for all these years that it was, what I'm saying? Why? The fact that we're talking about a 30-year-old claim, somebody who seems to be bringing it really too late, and now saying that my parents didn't authorize it, but then you still may have statute of limitations claims on the copyright issue. So I don't know. This is even a case that I think this is this is garbage. But good luck to him. Maybe he can get a settlement, because that's what if you could survive a motion to dismiss and go to discovery, maybe he can scare a settlement out. But this is not a case that, as an attorney, I would not take this case.
Yeah, no, I would not take this case either. So it's interesting that he did find an attorney. I mean, I feel like if your case is well known enough, you might be able to find an attorney who will take it on maybe a contingency. I don't know if I would. I definitely wouldn't take it on a contingency basis, right? Because then the attorney's fees are taken as a certain percentage out of whatever it is that your client gets from the defendant. So if they get nothing, then the attorney gets nothing.
Yeah, this is not a contingency case. You have to pay me by the hour. This is a rate case. He's going to pay me a rate.
Yeah.
But also too, and one thing about rate cases, I don't know if you've had this problem, is that when a client's paying you a rate, sometimes you have to tell the client no. And it's very hard to do when they're paying you the rate. Like, we want to do X, you say, well, we can't do X because, so it's and I'm thinking that's what this lawyer is going to run into, with this type of case. It's like, well, we it's like, even though you're paying me, there's certain things that I can't do as a lawyer. And this case, I think you have to tell them, like, listen, we have a real problem where I don't think it's going to be successful. So if you don't mind giving me a $5,000 retainer to file it, that's fine. But understand, I'm really not expecting this to go anywhere.
Yeah. Oh boy. So, anywho, that's all fun stuff. Anything else you want to say on this case before we move on?
No. It's that's it. I feel bad for. I don't feel bad for him because obviously his picture's been seen by millions of people, and he loves it because he's been taking these recreations every couple of years. But I feel bad that the court system seems to be wasted by this thing, and it seems like this guy's just an opportunist. He's trying to, again, this is all opinion. I don't know this person, but it seems like an opportunity that this person might. So we'll see.
Yeah. So it looks like
Chris, you want the link? I'll send you the link.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, does Kurt have another YouTube channel or another YouTube login? Oh, okay.
That's him. I'll send it to him versus via Twitter.
Yeah. Check your DMs.
Twitter is the battleground of life,
especially for you.
Oh yeah, no, I'm a Twitter warrior, baby. I think I'm gonna do that name, Twitter warrior.
I know. I definitely. I have not been as animated in getting into arguments with people as you have been on the subject.
Oh no, it's no, it's funny because especially on Twitter, one thing I do enjoy, I enjoy challenging my own beliefs. So for me personally, like when I go into something and someone says it's A, if I believe something is A, but it's not really A, I would want to be told that I'm wrong. And I don't care if you publicly tell me I'm wrong, but as long as you show me the evidence I'm wrong. Me and Nick Recchietta, we had a huge argument on Twitter. So we're doing this like for a day. But at the end, he was right. And I said, you're right. I was wrong. I understand. And, but that's the way I think it's supposed to work out if you have disagreements. But some instances when when you like I got issues with Colts and all this other stuff. That's now we're getting into a battle royale. So what's going on, Kurt?
Hey, what's up? I heard we're talking about Nirvana.
Yes,
we
Nirvana
are.
Baby.
We are. What are your thoughts on this delightful case?
Well, I'm a huge fan of Nirvana. I think Unplugged in New York is still one of the best albums that was ever made. I love it so much, and this guy has throughout the years, as has been noted, has said that he was a big fan of this. He liked it. He thought it was great. And the last couple of years, last 3-4 years, has said no, maybe not so much. But he's been an adult. Last time I checked, for 12 years, give or take. And I think the statute of limitations has long since expired. And no, I don't think any of this is going to work. But whatever. It's a cash grab and it's a dumb one. And him to try to frame it in the view of CP, which I thought was also. I mean, he's trying to find some federal hook to get past the statute of limitations, but I'm like, it's none of those things because it's not prurient, so it's just stupid.
Well, yeah, and that we didn't really go into too much detail on that either when we were talking about this earlier, Nate. Which is that you can have nudity of a child that on its own is not enough for CP, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to have any kind of like medical texts about biology or like any of that. So it has to have some sort of an intent to be of a prurient nature.
Yeah.
So anywho,
but I do like this comment in the chat that said from Dova Bear, said the baby all grown up is still chasing a dollar. That's hilarious. Born chasing the dollar, still living that dollar chasing life from Nirvana, incidentally. So I guess Nirvana's I guess this is Nirvana's fault, right? I learned it by watching you. You're the ones who taught me this dollar chasing pill life.
I know. There's him from 5 years ago. I put that star on there because I didn't want any trouble with YouTube. So, but otherwise, he's proudly holding this album, in its original format. So
he seems to be well aware of its existence.
Yes. Yes, and that's important too for the statute of limitations. It's not just that it happened, but that he was aware of it happening.
Yeah.
So, anywho. So yeah, Kurt, any other thoughts on that?
Well, I still remember when Kurt Cobain died, and it made me very, very sad.
When did he die again?
Oh, geez, that would have been he was 27 at the time, so that would have been 98, something like that.
Okay.
Something around those years, but yeah. I mean, something like that. But he was majorly influential and produced some great music. And I was thinking of the song "In Bloom" for some reason this morning, so got some Nirvana playing through my head too.
Yeah, I mean, it's really great music. Let's see here. So anywho, cool. Well, aside from that, we can probably move on to the next subject then. Now that we've dispensed with this nonsense. So the next one is DrDisrespect. Are you familiar with this one, Kurt?
I am familiar with this, and I tell you, when this hits the federal courts, I'm going to be all over that. Yeah.
It's going to be super, super interesting. So I just did a video on this. I published it yesterday. But basically, there's a possibility. Now, of course, we don't know. Okay, hold on. Before I get into that, let me give a little bit of background in case anybody here does not know. So DrDisrespect was a Twitch streamer. He had a contract with Twitch to stream exclusively with them. Basically, it was like a multi-million-dollar contract, and it was for multiple years. I think it actually would have been up this next September, I think, maybe, I'm not sure. But anyway, many millions of dollars would have been put into his pocket. But anyway, so he signed the contract in March of 2020, and then like June 2020, like not even 2 months later, at the end of June 2020, he just suddenly was permanently banned from the platform. And so there was this question as to like what happened. why did he get kicked off? There were so many rumors that were just following him around and are still kind of following him around because he really has been totally silent about it. But he just on Tuesday was live streaming on his channel on YouTube, and he basically said, "I'm going to sue the F out of Twitch," except he used the full F word. I'm just trying not to get I'm just trying not to get flagged here. Yeah, I'm trying to keep it clean. But so he said that he's going to be suing, and so there's obviously Section 230 comes in, the terms of service, the community guidelines, and the fact that they have an actual non-boilerplate contract between them for his exclusive streaming on Twitch. So this has been super interesting to me ever since last summer. And in between, you know, there was also another lawsuit that was filed against Twitch 3-4 years ago by James Varga, also known as Phantom Lord. I've talked about him quite a bit. I had him on my channel. He actually his case just went to trial in April and he won against Twitch. And it's a very similar sort of case. So it's interesting to me that there is a possibility that DrDisrespect could possibly follow a path that's already been taken by Phantom Lord.
Now, how did Phantom Lord win? What was his claim?
So there were some really interesting things that happened there. Number one, his contract, his exclusive contract. Now, as you guys know, typically when you have multiple possible documents that can be at play that can sort of modify the terms of the agreement, the way that these parties are acting with one another. You know, you've got terms of service, community guidelines. Typically, when you have a contract that is that two parties are entering into in this sort of situation, you want to be referring to the terms of service, the community guidelines, just so that everyone knows exactly what is going to be modified. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry if you guys hear my dog.
It's okay.
Okay. Anyway, so I assumed that the terms of service and the community guidelines were going to be somehow referred to in this contract for both DrDisrespect and for Phantom Lord. But what came out in discovery was that the contract for Phantom Lord had no mention whatsoever of the terms of service or the community guidelines. So because of that, so Twitch tried to have Section 230 come into the lawsuit, just like any social media platform is going to try to do that. They tried to argue that, you know, Phantom Lord was kicked off the platform because he was violating the terms of service and the community guidelines. He was doing XYZ that was bad, and so therefore this was a content moderation issue, and so it falls under Section 230, and therefore therefore the Twitch has immunity from liability.
But that doesn't. But now that wouldn't work because Twitch entered into an agreement with Phantom Lord, and then therefore waiving that immunity.
Yes.
And since they waived that immunity away, he can recover under the contract. He's not recovering under law; he's recovering under the contract. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Yes. And that's exactly what the court found, was that they said this is not a content moderation issue. We're not talking about the terms of service here. We're talking about the terms of a contract that you two expressly negotiated in ahead of time, and now that's that's it.
That's actually would be an interesting evidence rule, because I can see them, because the terms of service is actually what's the evidence that's outside of the contract? It's parole evidence.
Yes.
Right? Wouldn't that be parole evidence? So the parole evidence rule will come in, where you can't now introduce the terms of service to the contract because it's writings outside the contract.
Yeah.
My contract lessons from 6-7 years ago is working out.
And on top of that, there was language in the contract that said the terms in this contract are the full and complete contract. Nothing else.
Of course it does.
Nothing else modifies it, because I mean that's what any contract is generally going to say. So I remember when I found that out, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like we're talking about Twitch. I mean, this was ostensibly they drafted this agreement before they were bought out by Amazon, but even still, like this is nuts to me that they would draft a contract, because they're obviously the ones that are drafting it and offering it to Twitch partners, right? And they're going to do it in a way that is as favorable to Twitch as possible. And this was like a huge oversight. I was like, but that's crazy. So anyway,
also basic principle of law is you interpret a contract against the drafter.
Yes.
So if there's any ambiguity, you read it against Twitch, because they're the one that wrote it. So they have the ability to fix it. So if there's any ambiguity, Twitch loses.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was a huge deal. So they even tried to they filed a motion for summary judgment ahead of time, and they completely they lost on all of that. So that really just sort of cleared the runway for him to say, you didn't have a good reason for kicking me off. Like, what was your reason? And they couldn't give any kind of evidence that they had a good reason. And then, and all kinds of stuff came out. Like, there was a strike guide that Twitch has, which basically just gives this it's like a weird chart. Apparently, I haven't actually seen it, but his attorney described it on a live stream on my channel. And he basically was like, it's like a color coded, like massive Excel spreadsheet. And he's like, it's super complicated. And it basically is like, it just shows that everything is super arbitrary. But yeah, anyway. So he was able to win. So Phantom Lord won his lawsuit against Twitch, which was wild. And the thing is, we don't know, like I said at the beginning, we don't know what is actually in DrDisrespect's contract, because I do know that currently, it's my understanding that currently the contracts that Twitch is offering to Twitch partners do actually have language that includes the terms of service and the community guidelines.
I'm sure they learned that lesson.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you bet. But I don't know when they actually started doing that. So, yeah. So I don't know if those terms were included in DrDisrespect's contract, back in March 2020. But if
now,
they,
quick
if
question:
they were, I don't know.
Was the DrDisrespect contract? Was it before Phantom Lord had his issue? Because I'm assuming if it's before, then Twitch would have been like, hold on, we just lost all this money. Let's make sure our contract, has at least a morality clause or something that points back.
Yeah.
To that.
So they did. Oh, hey, Nick Mercado's in the chat.
We just were talking about you.
Yeah. Hey, Nick. Thanks so much for the super chat. So I was just going to say that the contract that DrDisrespect had, it was signed after Phantom Lord had already filed his lawsuit, but before trial. So I don't know exactly when that discovery came out, or when Twitch realized, oh crap, we have this huge oversight that we need to fix. But I don't know. We'll see. I mean, even still though, even aside from that issue, every contract also has an implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing.
Yes.
So that's an interesting twist in connection with these Section 230 issues also.
Yeah, but again, with Section 230, the immunity is waivable if you contract to it. So by them, it's making, because I'm assuming if I'm making an exclusive contract with a creator to only on my platform, then that's going to have to be in that contract, right? Because Section 230 is to promote me going on any platform and putting up stuff, and they're not responsible. If we have an exclusive deal between us, that's a different relationship than this person, because now this person is not allowed to go to YouTube. This person is not allowed to go anywhere else, right? They'd be violating the contract. So for them now to then add add 230 to say, well, our contract, their claims are barred by 230, it just doesn't make any legal sense, to me at least.
Yeah,
I agree. I don't think 230 is really an issue here. We're going to see what the contract has to say and what the reasons Twitch are going to give for because Dr. Disrespect thinks he knows the reason. So presumably they're going to say, well, here's our reasoning, and then we'll have a fight over that. But we'll look at the language. But
I don't know.
230 is not the dominant issue
Don't
here.
most of these contracts have morality clauses though? Where, for instance, if you get arrested for fraud or something like that, they can get out the contract.
Well, here's another thing too. To the extent that they were in banning him or removing him from the platform from things that pre-existed the signing of the contract, then the argument would be, well, Twitch, you had your ability to do your due diligence. It's not like I'm exactly hiding who I am as a person. If, for that matter, you signed me for a reason, presumably. Mm-hmm. So you had your opportunity to do due diligence. So unless they can say, well, he violated the contract after it was signed, I think they're going to have a slightly hard time going before that, saying, oh, morality clause because this thing a year ago. And then the counter argument is, well, how did you not know about that at the time you signed? So you obviously were willing to accept that, so there can't be a violation of the morality clause. So that would be my argument.
But I think that's a great argument. But the counter is that I would rather us fight about whether I knew that you did this bad than 230, right? Because 230 I think is a loser. The argument that you laid out, I have a fight. I have a factual fight that I can go to a jury. The 230 argument, I can't even get there because the motion to dismiss kills me.
Yeah,
and even if they didn't know, even if they could somehow prove they didn't know, it still wouldn't affect my argument because, you're a sophisticated actor. You had the obligation to do your due diligence, caveat emptor, and so you had to know what you were buying.
Yeah, but again,
sorry, I'm gonna mute myself.
I'm not saying that your argument isn't the right argument, right? I'm actually agreeing with you.
It's the best argument because
your argument is the best. It's actually it's convincing, but it's an argument. It's not a win. That's the difference. I think the 230 dismissal is a win. I think you are making an argument that will be successful, but I think you could make counter arguments to make the judge think, is it not? Are they that thing? Did they do their due diligence? How that I think is a little different. I think you're talking about more of a factual endeavor.
I mean, I don't know. I still think that that Section 230 could potentially be an issue here, though, for Dr. Disrespect if it refers to the terms of service and the community guidelines. I mean, because from the case law that I've seen, looking at Section 230, anytime there's an intersection with it, courts have generally given very broad power to it. So they can say, hey, look, we're talking about terms of service here, and under Section 230, we're allowed to moderate however we see fit.
But then it'll go right back to the contract, though, right?
I think Legal Bite's point is fair. She's right as to the case law.
Not that I want that to be the case.
Well, no, not when we're trying to give legal analysis. We're never saying necessarily that this is what we want. We're just trying to say this is what it is. And so Legal Bites makes a correct point, and so I want to emphasize it. It's every time the courts have analyzed 230, they've given an incredibly broad construction to the point that Justice Thomas somewhat recently opined in a solo opinion that maybe we should give it another look because of how broadly it's been applied.
Right.
But so the intersection of 230 is a reasonable point. And then Nate's point is also valid about the contract and stuff. So, hey, we have multiple great arguments here, and that's just trying to determine who was the winner. And then we can all produce videos about it, and we can all chastise each other. No, Legal Bites is clearly wrong.
Yeah, it'll be confronting uncivil law.
That's
right. So anyway, but I mean, these are all really, really interesting issues that, and he hasn't, I don't know if he's actually filed a lawsuit yet. He just says that he's going to be suing, or that he is suing Twitch. So, I mean, once there actually is a complaint to digest and, throw out there for everybody on YouTube, it would be very, very interesting to look at, and hopefully we get a chance to see it.
It will be. I'll definitely cover it.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure the real reason he was banned is because someone with a blue check mark or the equivalent got all fussy and won the snowflakes.
Well, one of the more I think credible sort of theories that I've heard, or at least one that I think is a bit more credible, is the theory that so in the time leading up to when Dr. Disrespect signed his contract with Twitch was competing with Mixer, which was owned by Microsoft. and they were sort of in this like streaming war with one another, trying to sign all these gamers and various personalities to sort of get them to be exclusively on their platforms so that they can just compete with one another. So not long after DrDisrespect signed his contract, Microsoft shut down Mixer. They were like, all right, we're done. We're moving on. And they just directed everyone over to like Facebook gaming or something like that, like something on the Facebook platform that I can't really remember right now. But basically that just meant that Twitch was like, okay, we don't have a competitor anymore. And so they may have decided, okay, that means we can make a financial decision where if we let go of this guy and maybe he sues, maybe he doesn't, maybe we think out of hubris that he won't win, or out of, whatever reasons we think he won't win. And, they did a numbers analysis and decided we're going to sign, these other guys over here. And that's kind of what happened. So not long after they signed Logic, a musician, to stream on their platform. And then they signed Ninja, another gaming streamer, onto Twitch as well. So I don't know. That's one of the more interesting theories, I think.
So basically, summing up, they realized they made a bad deal and they wanted out.
I guess, or at least they made a deal that was advantageous at the time that was no longer advantageous to them.
Oh, well, geez. Yeah. Well, that definitely somehow impacts the legal.
That's the women's U.S. soccer team. For
yeah, that's right. We wish we had different contracts. We wish we had made different agreements. We want to go back in time.
Oh no. So this is an interesting point here too. Phantom Lord sued for $35 million, but only received $20,000. However, he ended up. So this actually is an interesting point in the Phantom Lord lawsuit because it's not completely resolved. So that's how much he's been awarded in judgment so far. However, there's still one more cause of action that the judge has to rule on, which is the unfair competition law. So there's a lot more damages potentially coming out of there. So that should be coming in the next 2 weeks, apparently. So that's another interesting point, is that even the Phantom Lord case can still actually develop a little bit more following this news. But
yeah, interesting.
Anyway, yeah, fun times. So, any other thoughts on that before we move on?
Can't wait for it to drop, baby.
Yeah, that'll be super interesting, and hopefully it doesn't just go to something like arbitration where no one knows anything about any of the developments.
Oh, but I hope it at least file for that injunction and file the contract as part of it, just so we can have some analysis on that.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
That's where I think Disney's trying to take Scarlett Johansson's case.
Yeah, they certainly are.
Yeah,
and I do like the fact that apparently there's not some sort of transfer of the indemnity or something, or transfer of the arbitration clause, because Marvel had an arbitration clause, but somehow Disney, even though they are Marvel, don't automatically acquire that arbitration as a matter of right, which is, again, someone made a bad mistake in a contract drafting on that one, which Disney has the best lawyers in the history of time. So I guess it proves that anyone can make a mistake.
Yeah.
No, well, I think it was the context of what happened. She signed a deal with Marvel. Disney is the one that made the mistake with releasing it the way. So and that's why I kept saying, why didn't she sue Marvel? That's why she sued Disney. If she sues Marvel, she knows mandatory arbitration, and I can't get the story out of it. If I sue Disney, then I can get in front of a court. And now Disney's saying, well, we got mandatory arbitration because it's Marvel, and they're like, you didn't sue Marvel. She sued Disney.
I'm just amazed that Disney doesn't have some sort of indemnification clause between them and Marvel, or some sort of transfer that we have to argue over whether or not. I'm just surprised Disney isn't automatically covered.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Yeah, that's another case that's going to be interesting to watch too. But cool. All right. Well, on to the next subject, shall we? Cool. Let's do it. Okay.
Oh, yes. The FDA.
Yes. So, and before we get into this, we don't want to run into any sort of issues, just like our friend Joe Neerman, Good Logic, ran into. talking about some of these policies and whatnot. He got a strike on his channel, unfortunately.
Joe is going a little crazy with it. Like I understand, you know, but Joe's a little right wing with it. So yeah.
So we're obviously, you know, in all of these stories, we definitely stick to the law, the legal policy. You know, what does the law say? Because we never want to run into those sort of issues. But you know, and we're going to continue to do that here, obviously. But this is very interesting because we've been talking about this issue. It's kind of popped up here and there. You know, this issue about people mandating vaccines, either employers or state governments or, you know, others. And so now that it's been FDA approved, it seems that it is going to be totally legal for these vaccine mandates to be issued. What are your guys' thoughts?
Well, I recently did a video on this, and I think people don't understand that the government can, you know, the government now forces everyone. We all have vaccines in our system. The government forces us all to be vaccinated, and they do it in a way that they're not strapping us down the tables and sticking needles in our arms. It's an incentive-based vaccine program. You want to send your kids to public school? Get a vaccine. Matter of fact, you want to send your kids to any school, they got to be vaccinated, right? If you want to go to work for the city, we require you to be vaccinated. So the requirement of the vaccine is is the way we get everybody, and that's why, you know, like 99% of the people in America are vaccinated because of these incentive-based programs. So I know back in the Jacobson days, they actually, it was a criminal offense not to be vaccinated in Massachusetts, and he was fined $5 and turned it $150. But still, you know, it was a criminal offense. So that's what I would see, compelled vaccination. But I don't think people have to worry about that. I think also my only issues with this FDA approval is I think it's come extremely fast. It just doesn't seem like, you know, this is the fastest any vaccine has ever been approved. You know, I just don't know if you can get the amount of data you need in a 6 to a year time frame, and usually it takes years for this data to come in so people can be confident. You know, the 5-year timetable, the 10-year timetable. But you know, it's kind of like, do I trust the science? Well, if the science is changing, where something that usually takes 5 years takes 1 year, then I'm questioning the science. You know, I still trust it, but now you should allow me to be skeptical about the timetable because it's such a dramatic change. But you know, those are my thoughts. Maybe I'm too radical.
I think trusting the science and trusting the FDA are distinct propositions. Trusting the science and trusting the CDC are distinct propositions. Trusting the science and trusting the NIH are distinct propositions. So my confidence in the institutional players, in their, how shall we say, honest evaluation of the evidence and their honest description of their evaluation is less than full. I have expressed concern on my channel before with specific regard to Dr. Fauci, who I believe has, to be quite honest, flat out lied on a couple of occasions, including, I believe personally, when he said to Congress that the NIH was not supporting gain-of-function research. I think that's a flat-out lie, and he has some sort of clever linguistic maneuvering to try to get around that, but I think it's a lie. And so my confidence in this is not full. And so when you don't trust the person representing the information, you know, you're obviously a little bit more skeptical. So, and as Nate pointed out, this process seems to have been expedited. I've heard some rationales on why that is and why that makes sense that seem plausible to my mind. I've seen people who are professionals, as PHHH is noting, who have also expressed concern about this. So my confidence in this is less than full.
Yeah. And that's an interesting, I mean, this is like the number one issue that they're sort of wrangling with, right? Is trying to increase trust in it, right? Because people have a certain hesitancy, not everyone, but there's a large number of people that have a certain hesitancy in getting getting the juice, right?
Mhm.
And it seems like what not just the United States, but it seems, other countries as well are trying to basically say, well, if you don't do it, I'm going to make you do it. And I know that, there are certain ways that we have laws in order to try to really either encourage or discourage certain behaviors, right? I mean, that's essentially what laws are. There's just a guide for human behavior, and certain levels of severity depending on just how important those activities are. So we have certain things that people have to do. Like you've got to pay your taxes. You have to. That's just something that if you don't do it, the law is going to come down after you pretty hard. So, but I don't know. I mean, when it comes to these sorts of issues where people are legitimately anxious because of the ways in which it affects their personal health, it doesn't necessarily, it might eventually get the job done and getting everyone, getting the stick. However, I don't know what it does to, in the long run, to the trust that people have in these institutions, which are they've already been declining arguably for a long time. And I don't know what it does to that in the long run.
Well, I also think too, when we talk about science, right? Most of us in this room are not scientists, right? We are not scientists. We're not educated. We don't have any years of experience in biology, virology, how diseases, go travel and all that type of stuff. If somebody threw us a paper in the field, we'd probably look at it and probably couldn't even be able to read it, even if it was in English, right? Because we just wouldn't understand the terms and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So my skepticism is just like my daughter's skepticism when I tell her something, right? She really doesn't know. She's just skeptical to be skeptical. I'm skeptical, but I really don't know, any of the details. I don't know how to evaluate stuff. So that's my skepticism, and I understand that. But I think we have to be fair and understand the NIH is one institution. The FDA is another institution.
Right.
And my trust in these institutions is based on generally their history. I'm not going to trust an institution that has a long history of getting it wrong all the time, right? And the FDA gets it wrong, and so does the NIH. But then I'm also going to trust the people who've been in the field, who are working with the viruses, have done all the research, have done all that, and done all this. And I'm going to go with that as far as I can, because I think it's just reasonable to do, versus just some doctor on Twitter that says this is bad. What's your qualifications? So I think in looking at it, for me to say, trust the science, I think the ignorance on my part is that I don't know the science, right? I just know people who can decipher the science. Just like most of you who are watching this don't know the law. And we decipher the law to you. This is what the law says. This is how it interacts. So, to me, trusting the NIH, trusting the FDA is just like trusting a lawyer when I'm in trouble. If I get in trouble, I have to trust this person knows what they're doing. And if I have evidence that this person doesn't know, then I go to another lawyer, right? I go to another professional who's been trained in that field. So what does that mean to me? If the FDA says this is good, right now I say it probably is good, but that still allows me to be skeptical about the process. The process is different. And that's kind of the idea that I always want to convey. I trust the science, I trust the people behind it, but then I am still skeptical because of the changing environment.
Yeah, to that point, to echo the idea with a lawyer, it's important for the sake of, if nothing else, the attorney-client relationship, for the client to be able to have trust in the lawyer. Mm-hmm. And if the client doesn't have trust in that lawyer for whatever reason, that is not great to the relationship. So there's a distinction between not having a good relationship with a particular lawyer and not having not having relationships with the law in general. So, the relationship is somewhat personal, and if you don't like this particular lawyer, there's other lawyers, and so as long as you're not just being overly curmudgeonly, I think there's a point there. And to echo back to the point about the FDA, NIH, CDC, and all the rest of it, just because might have trust for some of these people doesn't necessarily mean I have trust for all these people, including, as I mentioned somewhat prominently, Dr. Fauci, who I believe has, at least to my mind, and feel free if you want to disagree with me, but to my mind has proven himself to be untrustworthy in this endeavor. So I'm not inclined to believe what he says. So he has lost my confidence. And at the moment, unfortunately, he's in head of the infectious diseases. So, I'm like, okay, well, if he's the guy and he's saying, I have full confidence, I'm like, not sure, sure. Is it another thing where you're twisting your words and bending things to just reach a predetermined conclusion? Because I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. I definitely get that.
I was just going to say, I wonder if part of this is also sort of like a difference in the culture of the field, right? Because I don't know about you guys, but the way that I've often thought of the way that lawyers interact with clients is we almost never talk in absolutes.
Mm-hmm.
Even the statement that I just said is
we almost never. You said it exactly right.
Right? Like it's not something that we do because we're so uncomfortable with absolutes. We are always talking about like, well, if this, then that, this could be a result, that could be a result, it depends. And so we're very used to sort of dealing with a lot of these possibilities, probabilities that we never really know what the outcome of a case is going to be. And it seems to me that's a little bit different than the medical community. The ways that a doctor will talk to a patient is usually, this is what's going to happen. I mean, not always, right? Like when you're talking about a prognosis, for example, you don't necessarily always know how long is somebody going to live with a certain disease, like how well will they recover? But usually it's, if somebody reaches a certain conclusion, it's getting to the conclusion very quickly, giving it with certainty so that they trust that exactly what you're doing and exactly what you're saying. And it just seems to me that is something that doesn't really work well in a pandemic where no one knows anything and where people are still developing their theories and their conclusions as time goes on. What do you guys think about that? Do you have the same sort of impression?
I live with a doctor, and their evaluation's the same as a lawyer. They almost never give absolutes. It's the same exact thing, right? Because you just don't know. You can say, this person presents like they're having a heart attack, and you come to find out it's indigestion. You just don't know. So you have testing, you have everything. So the evaluation process is the same as lawyers. And when it comes to the hierarchy, we have the Supreme Court and we have our courts that give us precedent that we kind of, apply facts to. They have the NIH and FDA and CDC, which they get their regulations from, and they apply facts to that. So that's kind of the same structure. So when I'm talking about, when someone says I distrust Fauci, that's like I distrust John Roberts or the Supreme Court, right?
Well, not to put too fine a point on it, but you'll find a number of people, especially on the right, who will say that.
Yeah, exactly. That they'll distrust, or the Supreme Court, they will distrust that. That's that. But at the level of doctor and patient, right? If your doctor's not following what the CDC says, they are probably going to get. They probably their license is going to be in trouble, right? The CDC tells them what to do. The FDA, if they're using drugs that's not FDA approved, they're in trouble. So, and just like for us as lawyers, if the president comes down and this is and we go and say this, then that's a problem. And that so I understand, and to the point about and to the point about science ever being evolving. A lot of people do this, and it's a mistake, and I'm surprised that people make this mistake all the time. They believe science and religion are the same in terms of being static, and science is not static. Science is something that's ever changing. Today, it can be scientific gold one day, and tomorrow we'll find evidence and they'll throw it all away. Einstein's theory of relativity. One day, it was all Newton, and then somebody went out with a telescope and proved Einstein right, and guess what? Newton was dead. Quantum physics. It even happened this year.
Newton's still pretty relevant, just saying.
Well, yeah, but come on. Like, really.
People were kicked out of heaven because of the fact that we're not a heliocentric universe. Dang it!
but that's what I'm saying. Science is ever changing, and like for even with the mask mandates. At one point they said don't wear masks, which Fauci lied about. He straight up lied.
I think, that was a big mistake, I think, from a policy standpoint.
But at first it was don't wear masks. Then they got evidence and they said do wear masks. Now, this is the problem where I think Fauci messed up, and I agree with Kurt 110%. They had the evidence back then that masks would stop infections. But instead of just saying masks, just start wearing cloth masks, they changed it and they said, well, masks don't work because, as Fauci said, well, we didn't want people to run on masks.
Oh,
but that is not the. But
so you lied with good motives. I wonder if that might happen again.
But that makes me question whether you're telling me the correct science or not.
Right.
And that's what I think Kurt is saying, and that's why now I think Fauci has a problem, and that's why I think Biden made a mistake, because no matter how much experience Fauci has, they could have put somebody new in there to build their own reputation and then let Fauci be the guy in the background working in the field. But now to still keep Fauci out there, he still has this issue where I don't know if Fauci's telling me the truth, just like Kurt does. Even though I trust the science, I don't trust Fauci. And that's as accurate as I can be.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, because I think that once people understood that they actually did know the correct answer, that the change in the policy on masks was not related to new information. It was just because they didn't trust humans. They didn't trust the public. I mean, that was number one. It set a precedent for, okay, they lied to us before and they can do it again. And number two, also, they don't trust us, so why should we trust them? That's a lot of people thinking that.
And also with the CDC, with the whole eviction moratorium, they said they knew that it was illegal, and then 3 days later it's like, well, the courts won't get around to it, so we can buy ourselves some time. I'm like, again, they're doing something because their motives are pure enough. Fauci is saying don't wear masks because his motives are pure, because it would put a run on masks. The CDC is saying, we're going to do the eviction moratorium, even though we really know we can't, because our motives are pure. It will keep people in houses longer. So how can I not look at this and be like, maybe the FDA is perhaps potentially doing some things because, well, it's right, but maybe they skipped some steps or weren't as thorough as they should be, or maybe they were actually aware of things they're not telling us because, well, their motives are pure in their mind, so it makes it okay.
And that's a reasonable, and that's extremely unreasonable interpretation.
Now, this all being said, I just want to state for the record that I personally did get the vaccine because I did the best of my knowledge, and I'm a computer scientist for whatever value that has. But I did my best due diligence and found that it was worth the trade-off. So my skepticism didn't go that far, but I'm not necessarily trusting what the FDA is selling me today.
Yeah, I took the vaccine, but I wouldn't let my kids take the vaccine.
Yeah,
and that's because I'm older. I have a lot of those check marks, overweight, and so forth and so forth.
Yeah.
But then also, my kids are developing; they're growing, and the survival rate for children is like 99.99%. The survival rate for someone in my age group is like 77%. You know what I'm saying? So, well, not 77%, but it's like 95% or something like that. Yeah, it's like 95% something like that.
Yeah.
But the older you get, the higher risk of death or injury comes. So young people are virtually immune to it. But now, as you see in Florida, all those kids are now going to the hospital because they're unvaccinated. So we'll see.
Yeah. And then the other part of it too is that when you trusting the reason we have to also keep in mind the reasons why we trust science, right? And it's because it's been rigorously tested. It's been looked at from every possible side. It's been poked and prodded for any kind of vulnerabilities. And so that's the reason ultimately why we trust it, is because it has been put through the fire. And so people want to, when there's something brand new that seems like maybe it hasn't been tested, people want to be able to test it. So if you want to increase trust, you've got to allow people to talk about it, to go through it, to kind of see all angles on it. And they seemingly don't trust the public to do that. So,
well, let's not forget to it. And you can't really be naive about this. You can't tell the public everything.
Of course.
Let's just not even pretend like
right.
We could just the government can just be totally transparent and tell us everything. That's just that's not happening. And they do. And even Trump himself said that he didn't tell the public how bad the virus was in January because he knew that people would panic. And sometimes and I respect the fact that people can acknowledge that, because there's certain things that I do want the government to keep from us in attempts to keep, order and so forth, and let out, that's why we elect them, right? There are state secrets that the president knows that none of us are going to know, right? If they're transparent, there wouldn't be any top secret clearance. But then but what I don't want to be is misled. I'd rather you say nothing than tell me something that's false.
And what your point also brought to mind is, I wonder if everything was exactly the same, except Trump was still in office. I wonder if everything the FDA we'll imagine a hypothetical world where the NIH and CDC and Fauci and FDA continue to say everything they've actually said since January 20th. So nothing changed there. I wonder how the narrative would be going in terms of various people, because before the election, there are prominent politicians, I think Nancy Pelosi might have been included, who expressed skepticism, if not outright saying, well, I'm not going to trust any vaccine that's been approved by the Trump administration. I won't take that. So I wonder in this counterfactual universe, what the vaccination rates would look like among Republicans and what they would look like among Democrats.
Yeah, that's a fair point too.
And what the mainstream media would be saying about the safety and efficacy of the vaccine. I wonder how would their news reporting still be exactly the same? I have my doubts.
Yeah,
it's weird because right now, and I hate even talking about the news, but right now, I really can't watch any of the news shows. Whatever news show you get to, for instance, one of the key things that are happening now is about the Tucker Carlson defense versus the Rachel Maddow's defense. If you go to MSNBC or CNN, it's always called the Tucker Carlson defense. And for those of you who don't know the Tucker Carlson defense, Tucker Carlson was sued by the Playboy playmate that Trump had was cheating on his wife with, and she sued him for defamation. But they threw it out because they said no reasonable person would believe what Tucker says on this show is facts. It's all opinion, right? No, unless if you're an idiot, you believe that, but no reasonable person would believe that. And Tucker Carlson, they said, okay, well, yes, nobody would believe it, so he can defame whoever he wants, and that was it. The same thing with Rachel Maddow, except Rachel Maddow's case was worse because Rachel Maddow actually countersued, and got all her attorney's fees paid by OAM. So her case was even a worse example. But now when you go to Fox News, it's not the Tucker Carlson defense anymore. It's the Rachel Maddow defense. If you watch Viva, if you watch all the right wing, it's Rachel Maddow. And that's I think where the news has gotten nowadays, where it all depends on what team you're on. And I find this fascinating. On my channel, particularly, my channel, I like to call it a middle of the ground center politics channel, where you'll see me say horrible things about the left and the right. U.S. women's soccer. You'll see all the rights love me for that. Trump lost the election legitimately. You'll see all the people on the left love me for that. But no one just likes the facts anymore. Everybody wants the facts coached in this little in a way which helps you feel better at night. And I think that's the scary part about being on YouTube, because every time I do a video, I have a fear that if I just give you facts, people are going to run away, because people today, for some reason, can't handle straight up facts. They need the spin. And I just don't know how to overcome that part of society where it's just like, hey, but the U.S. women's soccer team has given me hope, because when I laid out those facts, as we all know, people loved that to death. But there were facts for the right side. So I'll see. I don't know. Maybe I'm rambling too much here, but it's just
the solution may just be to pick one team or the other. And every once in a while, I'm at least partially tempted. It's like, let me just go full bore right wing and just, everything the right says is good and everything the left says is bad. And we can do no wrong and they can do no right, and just go that way.
But facts, I'm like, Team facts. Why can't we be team facts? Here are the facts.
No one likes team facts. The YouTube's like Twitter's operates on outrage. So if I just go straight right wing, I have all the people who love me, and then all the people who are outraged by me, and so my channel will grow exponentially.
I know. Unfortunately, that seems to be how these algorithms tend to grow much more rapidly. But I feel like, at least, I don't know, maybe this is naive of me, but I feel like in the long run, if you play, the middle ground, which is just where I prefer to be, is, like like Nate, I like to show facts. I like to package them in a way so that people can understand them, and then just let people come to their own conclusions. But I feel like in the long run, you're going to build up trust with people over time, so that when you do reach a certain conclusion, people aren't going to say, okay, well, you're coming to that conclusion because you're on team X or team Y. Like this is somebody who over a long period of time has built up good faith in trying to, talk about these topics and present them in a fair way. Hopefully that's my hope. There's got to be some other people in the middle too, right? It's not just us.
No, well, there are many people out there who I think want to consume a fair product, and I think we all do a very good job of just being middle of the road. We give some opinion, but most of the time, if somebody watches our video, they'll have the facts of the situation, and they can kind of decide whichever way they're going to go.
Yeah, true. So, cool. Well, anyway, on that note, I think that pretty much covers everything.
Yeah, we've done it. So I don't know. So go get your vaccine, right? Oh, we've all been vaccinated, right? Because I remember I took the second shot, but I'm a Moderna, so I had the unapproved.
Oh no!
See, when I was doing my due diligence and waited, I thought the Pfizer was the better choice, and I'd actually wait for it because Moderna was available in my area for a couple months before Pfizer was for some reason. Mm-hmm. So I actually waited. I didn't get vaccinated till like April or May or something because I really wanted the Pfizer. So for whatever value it has, apparently that's the one that's leading the race. So yay me for being able to read or something. So I'll take some credit.
But listen, I do want to give you guys this tidbit. Listen, this is from the FDA's website, and this is interesting. So the vaccine, so supposedly there are two Pfizer vaccines. The one that's under emergency use is different than the one that is approved.
What?
Interesting.
Pretty weird,
How
right?
so?
All right, so let me share my screen so you guys.
Yeah.
But so this is the FDA's website.
What? I have questions.
I know. So this is the fact sheet from the CDC, and I'll pull it up. So the FDA approved Comirnaty vaccine and the FDA authorized Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. That's the one that you've taken, Kurt, under emergency use authorization, have the same formulation and can be used interchangeably to provide the COVID-19 vaccination series. So, in other words, if you take the emergency use one and then you take this new one, it's the same. It does the same thing. You could take them together. But then at the bottom here, it says the licensed vaccine has the same formulation as the emergency use authorization vaccine, and the products can be used interchangeably to provide vaccination series without presenting any safety or effectiveness concerns. The products are legally distinct with certain differences that do not impact safety and effectiveness. So these are.
Would you like to expand? Vaccines. Would you like to expand on these unimportant differences in any way?
Hold on 1 second. That's my kid's school.
Oh shoot! Oh no, he was supposed to explain everything to us.
So they have the same formulation, but they're legally distinct. I'm not sure how both those things can necessarily be true at the same time, unless they're talking about some sort of preservative or something. I don't. I still have questions.
Or I mean, I could see that. It probably has something to do, or maybe it has something to do with what people know at the time of getting vaccinated. Right? Like if somebody gets it after it's been approved, they know it's been approved. And so they
You think that's what they mean?
I don't know, maybe. I mean, because that seems like that's really the only difference, right? Because they said that it doesn't impact the safety or the effectiveness. They're legally distinct, but it doesn't say that they're medically distinct, right?
Fair. Okay. Legal bites. That is a fair way to read that. If that's what that means, I wish that would be a little bit more clearly explained. If what it literally means is, these are just legally distinct in so much as one is emergency use and one is full authorization, which are different legal categories, which they are.
Yeah.
So, the licensed vaccine, it would have different legal distinctions. So Okay, Legal Bites. Maybe you're right. Maybe you have the better reading on this one. So maybe I'll stop panicking.
Yeah, I mean, because otherwise, why would they add legally to distinct, right? Because that modifies the word distinct. Otherwise, if it was just generally distinct with certain, because I mean, if it said the products are distinct with certain differences that do not impact safety or effectiveness, then that could imply, generally speaking, including medically distinct. But they specify legally, which means that the scope is much more narrow, right? Makes sense.
It could mean that. Yeah, it could very well mean that.
Yeah.
And that would certainly square with same formulation. So that's a plausible read, but this is a little bit ambiguously written to my mind.
Yeah, yeah, because I wish that they would at least direct us to where we could find out more as to what they mean by legally distinct.
But points where points are due. Legal bites. I don't want to let the point go completely past because I hadn't even considered that possible reading. So I give you that. Okay, so you missed the whole entire exchange.
Sorry.
But yeah, legal bites was expressing the point that in this last sentence it says legally distinct as opposed to medically distinct, and so maybe all it means is the only difference between the licensed vaccine and the emergency use is literally their legal status.
But it also says with legally distinct with certain differences
that do not impact safety or effectiveness.
Yeah, so there are differences that don't impact safety, but so this is saying they're legally different, but then there are certain differences. Are those differences?
But are the certain differences of a purely legal nature? Because that's how Legal Bites was reading. I'm like, okay, that's a plausible read. I agree with you, Nate. It was not my first read, and I think it could be read differently. But I was like, props where props are due. Legal Bites has had an insight I didn't have, so
No, I think you're both right. I think it can be read to say that that it's the same vaccine but just legally different. But this legal it's just the wording. The products are legally distinct with certain differences that do not apply. So this means that there are differences within the products.
Yeah.
That even though they are legally different. So I don't know.
Although the differences, I mean, they don't go into any sort of elaboration as to what those differences are. So the differences could be just legal status, right? Because the differences in legal status wouldn't have any impact on the effectiveness or the safety of the vaccines, right? So, so the fact that they modified the term distinct, to legally distinct. But they didn't modify the term differences. So
maybe the certain difference that doesn't impact the use of the drug is now the nano chip that's being added as part of the vaccine injection.
Should have
do that without a full authorization step.
No, just kidding. We are not making that claim. For anyone that's reviewing this live stream, we're not making that claim. I don't want to get kicked off of YouTube.
So here's what it says. It says, what are the ingredients in both the vaccines, right? The Comirnaty and the Pfizer biotech. This is the authorized use. And it says they both have the exact same ingredients.
Okay. Well, I understand literally all the words that are in that with perfect clarity, so I'm sold.
Well, no, because it just says N, and then it just lists them all. So it's basically the same ingredients.
4-hydroxybutol, anazale, bis, hexane, 6,1-disyl. I mean, that's a classic, man. What's not to love?
So I think Legal Bites, I think you're right. I think there's a legal distinction with the name Comirnaty and the emergency use, but I don't think there's an actual distinction in the actual drug itself.
Yeah.
It's the same drug.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's probably what that is. And they dropped that footnote thinking that no one would read it and that no one would care, and that they didn't have to elaborate. And then of course leave it to lawyers to actually read it and be like, oh no.
Oh no, this is a huge thing online now.
Oh really? Okay.
Huge thing online. Like Robert Barnes is saying that. Like it's a huge thing on the right wing that's determining because they've read this and said there are two. The first one is one that is the emergency use, right? And then the second one, they said there's none available. So they're making the distinction that if you want to get the Pfizer vaccine now, like if a company says you now have to be vaccinated because it's approved, the argument is I don't have access to the approved vaccine. I just have access to the emergency use vaccine. So you can't force me to get the emergency use. I have to wait till the Comirnaty comes out that's been approved. So that's the
Interesting.
legal distinction they're trying to make. So now, for the next and they've said they can't produce this for a couple of months until they put the Clarity stamp on it. So if that's the case, that impacts vaccine mandates, because now if you mandate people to get the vaccine, well, technically, because they're legally distinct,
The vaccine doesn't exist or it's not
And so-
available.
The limit does not exist.
it does not
Sorry,
exist.
that's a Mean Girls reference.
Does that make sense? I know
Yeah.
it's partially
Yeah.
straws, but that's the
But that's
legal
what we
theory out
do.
there.
This is our
This is
job.
what we
We are supposed to split hairs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so that is interesting for the for the in terms of the legality of the mandates, right? Because yeah, I mean, I do agree that now that it's been approved by the FDA, mandating the vaccine is probably actually very much legal. But then in terms of requiring when you require people to get them, they need to be able to have access to them. And obviously, I mean, everyone in the United States has very good access to the vaccine, generally speaking, like the vaccine.
The legally distinct vaccine, yeah.
Well, yeah. These various emergency use authorized versions of it. So, but the question is, but we are splitting hairs as lawyers, but at the end of the day, when you take a step back, if they are the same exact formula, it's the same exact, thing, everything about it is exactly the same except for the legal status. I don't know. I mean, if we were putting this in front of a judge in a court of law, they would probably be like, at the end of the day, it's the same thing. This is the same thing as what has actually been medically authorized. It doesn't have specifically that label. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, whatever legally distinct must mean, I don't think you can go before a judge and be like, these are exactly the same. I mean, whatever it means, it must mean if they're legally distinct, they can't be legally the same. So, okay.
I mean, okay.
Are they legally distinct from patent purposes? Because that's another thing that goes in my mind. It's like, when we say legally distinct, what do exactly... Okay, I have so many questions.
Well, don't forget, I'm understanding it to be like this. And again, I could be wrong. But my understanding is the legal distinction comes with the packaging. When a drug is under emergency use authorization, there's a different type of packaging and things that goes into prescribing it and so forth and so forth. So it can only be, but when it becomes approved, there's a couple of things that number one, it has to be named. So that's why they had to give the name, Clarity. Then the second thing, in the packaging, it has to have warning labels, it has to have this, and then doctors have to be able to prescribe it in a certain way. So those distinctions make that if you put the same drug in two different bottles, one bottle's emergency use because of the packaging, and one bottle is legally distinct because it's approved, because the approval is not just the drug, but it's the packaging and all that stuff that goes with the drug. So that's where I'm thinking they're making the distinction.
So you're thinking it would be the rough equivalent of someone like manufacturing a food stuff and putting different nutrition labels on it, depending where in the world it's being sent to, because they require different things.
Yes.
Even though it's exactly the same cereal that's in the box.
Also, while we're on it, can we say what kind of a name is Comirnaty? Who came up with this? It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue.
I mean, if you think of how do they name any of these drugs, right? Like they're always like weird random names, I feel like.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Comirnaty, I don't know. Comirnaty.
Someone sat down with a room with a bunch of people and brainstormed that genius. Okay, like, all right. And there was a little board meeting where they presenting Comirnaty, and everyone clapped.
They're like,
okay.
Co for COVID, Mir because it's a miracle, and then nah, thank you.
They should call it like
I don't know.
Hot shot, or something like that.
Yeah, give it a really, really dope name. Why don't we just call it dope? Now from Pfizer, dope. Get it today.
Oh man, I don't know that's gonna work.
This was great, guys. I definitely enjoyed it, and you guys don't forget, you got to come back next week. We got to do this again.
Yes.
Great.
Yes. Agreed. So, all right. So yeah, I guess on that note, that's about everything for today. Hopefully this stays monetized after this whole discussion. But if not, whatever. This was fun. This is a really good discussion. On that note, so of course, as always, I am Alita with Legal Bites. We've got Nate the lawyer. We've got Kurt with Uncivil Law. And this has been a wonderful stream. If you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. And if you haven't checked out theirs, I mean, you probably have, right? Because your guys' channels are way bigger than mine. But if you haven't, check out Nate the Lawyer's channel. Check out Uncivil Law's channel.
You keep producing the one like you did their last video, man. You're going to outpace us all.
Oh, which one?
The last one that Nate commented on, either on the comment or something. It was really, really good.
The DrDisrespect one?
Yeah, it was really good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was
Thank
really
you.
good. It's like, shit, man. Alita's going to be eclipsing me, no problem. Shit, this is I gotta step in my game or something.
I don't know about that, but it was a very fun video to make, and it's super interesting to me. And so hopefully we've got more videos like that coming out. So we'll see. So anyway, on that note, have a great rest of your week, everyone. See ya.